So, church trauma, part 7. So, basically, yeah, I actually ended up denying my gifts because of all of the criticism or the weird way that people made me feel when they pointed out what I was doing. Because when I would watch somebody, I would, like, not just look in their eyes, but look all around them. And I'm pretty sure when I was younger, I could actually see auras because I associated people with different colors. And that was never developed because I didn't know what I was doing. I just know, like, this is your color. Like, you still look good in other colors, but this is your color. And if ever I drew these people that were continuously in my life, I would draw them as that color. Like my mom, like for me, my mom was always red, and my nana was always purple. And so, that's how I always drew them. So whenever they were wearing whatever they were wearing in any picture that I drew them in, they were wearing those colors. I refused to change what colors they were wearing because that's what I saw. Um and then another thing, I don't know if I mentioned it in the last video, but another thing was constantly being called strong-willed. And this came up quite frequently about like being strong-willed. Uh, I was never able to tell what my positive traits were. And even like in job interviews to this day, people are like, "Oh, like, what are your strengths?" And I give them a lot of generic things that I think that they want me to say. Um, or repeat things that I'd heard in the past, because there was a point where I had an assignment in middle school where I had to list positive traits about myself, and I had to ask my mom to give me positive traits. And the first thing that she said was like strong-willed. And it's a kind of a red flag if a child cannot like speak, like especially at that age, tell you any positive traits. My mind always drew blank because I never felt good enough. I always felt like my mom absolutely fucking hated me. And like she really hated me for breaking up her happy home, previously. She claimed later that she was never happy with that whole situation. But, whatever. Um, but so yeah, being strong-willed, like I was like, that's a really that like I always thought like that was a very weird one to start with, and it didn't feel like it was necessarily a good thing, but I wrote it down anyway because like I needed 3 and I couldn't think of even one, so I had to ask. I had to ask other people to tell me what my positive traits were in middle school. Now, if that doesn't show that all of my like validation had to come from outside, I don't know what the fuck does. And so I realized that like later on, now this is going to get into like more spiritual territory and shit. I realized later on that that might have been something that she discovered when she was trying to impose her own will on me. Because no matter how obedient I was, there was still this deep rebel force within me that would not allow her to completely take me over. And so every now and then it would fully awaken, and then I would be myself again. And then I would have to stuff it back down. Hence why I constantly would get berated and like beat down back into the box that they wanted me to fit into. And when living in that like haunted house that we had, I also like being surrounded by spirits that fucking strongly must have heightened my gifts all to a degree that I had never remembered experiencing. And I actually had one particular spirit that I felt following me. And it was like this huge, dark, looming force over me. Now I realize that not every shadow is like a bad thing, but at the same time, this one was. Now, it was like a masculine spirit that seemed to just follow me and like basically had claimed me as theirs. And I wasn't allowed to speak about it. And even speaking about it now ruffles my feathers. But I'm breaking the generational curse of silence because they continue if we do not speak. Everything that has gone on in this family from these generations has been silent. It has been silented and kept within the family like this is a motherfucking mafia. And anybody that strays outside of that, like sharing with friends, even like friends, not to the whole fucking world, gets targeted. So come at me, bitch. Because I'm done. I'm breaking it. And this, I managed to break free of the spirit a bit ago. And it was fucking crazy. But like I always felt it. And I thought I could just escape it by like shutting it out and all of that stuff, but it would begin to affect the people around me if I even started to acknowledge it. And so like I would even notice it in like friends and stuff like that. Like I wouldn't be able to hang out with certain friends because they were like highly susceptible to this dark energy like getting a hold of them and making them turn on me. And I realized when I actually was able to see it in that house that it had been with me for a long time. And I must have always felt it on some level. But yeah. No, not anymore. It doesn't get to affect me anymore. So yeah. that was terrifying for me at the time. I like completely shut down. I did not address it. I didn't really talk about it. The one time that I did attempt to talk about it, I couldn't really because it like just sounded absolutely nuts. And then like bad stuff would start to happen around me. And it was ridiculous. So, yeah, I always had the sense that she was like always trying to impose her will upon me. And later on, as an adult, I felt it. I began to feel it. Now, you can believe whatever the fuck you want to believe, but I began to feel it and I began to hear what she was thinking when she was doing it. Because when I like moved, there was a point where my sister had showed up randomly at my house and I wouldn't let her in because it's just like I had just done a deep cleanse of my house, like sage, palo, and incense and all, and a floor wash. And she wanted to come to my house and I was like, no, I just cleansed my house. I'm not letting anybody in. And either way, like you didn't tell me that you were going to show up. You just showed up, which she often did this. She often violated that boundary of just showing up without telling me that she was going to come whenever the fuck she wanted. And I set that boundary with her, and then sometime later, my mom did the same thing, and for some reason, I couldn't fucking tell her no. And so she came into my fucking house because I let her in because for some reason, I couldn't tell her no. And then I just got this sense that, oh, she'll let me in. This feeling like she was like, oh, well, she'll let me in. So if I go to her house, then she'll be forced to let me in. Like I own her. So if I want entry to her space, then I'm gonna get it. And then when she got in, I got this air of like, this sense of, that's what I thought. And then she let my sister in behind her after that.